Now it's okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 20.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's episode 20.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
That's long. Okay.
That's long. Over
Nice
a year.
to be.
Sorry.
Today, we have two very special guests. We have the third episode with Daniel Borak. And we have a special guest today, which is Uwe. We're so happy to have you here.
Yay!
Very excited. So, where do we start?
We don't have anything else to say. So, just to maybe we need to wait for people or a little bit. Now we go.
We go.
We don't care. Okay,
Yeah.
we go. We decide just to do a recap of the things that we're doing lately. If somebody just joining right now, these talks are around. We wanted to point them to Europe, so we decided different topics. We start with Sara Petroni and Lila Petroni for the last season. This season we have Daniel Borak because we wanted to talk about competition and championship. So we had 2 episodes with him. We talk around many ideas of the path of Daniel, how championships work, at least in tap dancing, composition, choreography, a lot of things. But I think one thing was escaping to us. It was history around these things. So Daniel said oh, I know who to bring here and who to talk to. So ta-da, we have Uwe here with us. So I think the main topic for today is history around this thing, but I think there's a lot of things to talk with him. So I will not just square the thing no, just the thing, just ta-da. Let's see where we go. Goes. Yes.
Maybe it would be nice to start a little bit with who you are, Uwe. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell a little about yourself?
Okay. I studied music actually and English, and I had this dream in mind to start tap sometime, but there was nothing around really. So I came across a book and from a Swiss tap teacher, and I studied while I was doing my civil service, and I was teaching at a children's at a hospital for children with psychic problems, and so I used the time in the afternoon to teach myself the first steps, and then I found actually a school where there was tap, and I went into the beginners class when one started, and then I was asked to join the advanced class after 5 lessons. Because I was quick and fast and I had prepared a little, and we had 3 more lessons, and then the advanced class was cancelled because it was not enough people. So the ballet school said, well, that's not, I don't pay for 4 people or 5 people. And so that was my career in tap in tap studies. And then we just took the people. I changed the flat at this time. It was during my studies. I was studying music as a music teacher with guitar and choir and singing and piano and everything. And yeah, and then we just I went into a new WG, a new place where people who worked lived together, and there in the cellar I put on a little studio so we could rehearse. So then we started making up things. The teacher joined us, and she knew some steps, but not more. And I knew about music, and we started choreographing right away. And we started performing right away. And that was in the beginning of the 80s, actually, in the middle of the 80s. And from there we went. And when the teacher went away from the ballet school, I went to teach there to replace her. And so I had suddenly a lot of classes, and the things were going. And then we were thrown out after 2 years from this ballet school because they thought the tap dancers don't fit so much. You know, we were always sort of the fifth wheel on the car. And that happened a lot with tap in this time. You know, that we were always just could have lessons on Friday evening at 9 o'clock or something like that, because everything else was a ballet school. So tap was just a little side, and they didn't mix so much. And then they threw us out, and I had 60 students, and so I started a school of my own, and that's how I got into that. And of course, then I just went to workshops all the time, and because I had a school, I could invite teachers, and first Victor came a lot and helped us, and then other people. We had Joe Orrick and Rod Ferrone there when they were touring, and gave a show in the workshop. And then I went to New York, and I met I met a lot of people there, and went into the La Cave every Thursday. So for 3 weeks I was there. And it was always also competitions then. As soon as the school was built up, we had a competition quite close here, the Deutschland Pokal, which was put up by tap enthusiasts in the region. And
for those who might not know, what city are we talking about?
I'm living pretty close to Switzerland. That's so right in the south of Germany, and this was Freiburg is close to Bâle, Switzerland, and so we had this connection. And in this, we call it 3-country angle, because France, Switzerland, and Germany sort of meet there, and that's where we met the first enthusiastic tap dancers like Andreas Daniel. And I got him to teach at my school because he was just incredible. Also, when he was really young, he was a fanatic and had a music level because he was also composing things, and that gave us a big push. And that was I opened the school in 1988, and then it just went crazy because I had a lot of young students. I was young, and so they went with me, and we did our first show, then the big show in 90, and then we did a show every year, or even 2 or 3 shows a year. And because I was always a theater man. I had played operettas before. I had sung in operettas. I had always I loved the theater. And so for me, tap was a theater discipline within a theatrical process, really. And that I tried to develop more and more. And now I have the school for 32 years or 33 years now this summer. So that's a long journey. And I must say since then I've spent every day just with tap and nothing else, and what a blessed life this is, yeah, to meet all these people and see things develop over the time. And I was much of a dancer. My ideal first was Fred Astaire, and then my heroes were Gregory and Jimmy Slide and of course Sam Weber. And Sam came every year for over 20 years. He came every year to the school, and we did shows together. And so meeting Sam was actually our future, because then we knew where to go, and that's an infinite way to go. You just it never ends. If you got technique, you can combine it with all styles of music, but it was always about presentation in the end. So I was more a choreographer than an improviser, I think. Yeah. So that's
amazing.
How I got started, and I was always interested in history, and because when we grow up, my generation, tap was away, for some. It was not reachable really, and it was very hard to get to things, and we traded videos, and so I always exchanged them, and I got a new one from there, and we learned a lot from videos, and but my ideal was to dance. For me, tap was moving over the stage and doing as complicated sounds. And I must say another teacher for me was Oscar Peterson, because he was my way into jazz. I just loved the way he played. I had like 50 CDs from him, and all my lessons I used his music, because the trio music was just perfect, and the bass was so grooving, and when he was with Joe Pass or other musicians, it was just incredible. So I choreographed a lot of his pieces, trying sometimes to do the solos tone by tone and things like this. So more the melodic way than the percussive way, and that leads also to dancing. If you hear melodies, you have things. Also, the dynamic is you think in directions. You think in going towards the audience or away, or you're going in circles or whatever. And so it's much about the concept in space. And of course, this I shared much with Sam, who had came from the same desire, to dance, So for us, we called it jazz tap, because we tried to dance and still include as many sounds and as complicated sounds as possible while moving. So that's what Sam is known for, yeah. And yeah.
Nice. I have a question, like, when did it start with because behind you there is this huge archive of material, of tap dance material. When did you start, like, can I call it being addicted maybe? Or just
collecting,
not addicted, but in a good way, like really starting to collecting material? When did you start with that?
When I founded German Tap, actually. Well, before I had collected what was around, but then through German Tap, I got to know so many people who trusted me, and they gave me their stuff. And also a big dance historian, Helmut Günther from Germany, who was with the Hoofers in '66 in the Berlin Festival, and wrote about that a lot, and wrote books like Jazz Dance and stuff. And his widow came to me and said, "Well, I've got a lot of stuff, and can you have it?" And others came who were old, and they saw that I was someone. Also with Rainer Köberlin from Munich, he was an antique. He had an antique bookshop, And he had always collected during his time, and so he gave me a lot of things, and I bought them from him. And he probably infected me the most with history, with learning from books, and that it was all there, you know, because then it was a sensation that these things were there, and that you knew you were not alone, because it's always, you know, there were people before you. And I got interested in German history to see what it was like, you know, to dance, to be a tap dancer in the Third Reich and under a dictatorship where it was not really, where it was accepted in some way. If it was practiced, you know, in a German way or and not in an American way. So it had to be, because they were the enemies, and it was a hard time. And if you were successful, it was a schizophrenic situations for the dancers, you know, in this time. And I got interested in that, but really it was the idea of German tap. You need certain foundations that the art can survive. And we always felt that it could go away again, you know, so because it was away in the 50s and in the 60s, largely, especially in the 60s. And so you need written books, literature about it. You need a community that communicates. So that's why we founded German Tap, just a few years after Swiss Tap was founded. But it was not a competition organization, but sort of an association that tried to give on information and make it easy for the tap dancers to meet. And because then there was no internet at this time, of course, yeah. So the newsletter was the only way, like the ITA newsletter. So everything came through the ITA, actually. The ITA was founded in '89. And so that was all quite close together. Swiss Tap in '92 and we in '95. And also there was a French organization for this at this time, the UPAC, which had the problem that they didn't get out of Paris. Because in France, you know, every country has different possibilities, and especially in Switzerland, there is no tap community like in Switzerland, because this is such a special situation, you know. And also the competitions are very different in Switzerland than in any other country, because there the tap dancers are in charge. In Germany, it's some dance organization that is in charge and that tries to do it the way they do dance competitions, you know. And it has the feeling, and it has also the Switzerland is the land of with the longest tradition in Europe for competitions, because they practically, I don't think if there was ever a break, we just don't know so much. But I just sent the Swiss Tap organization some dates from competitions, Swiss championships in 1942, where they had people from Bern winning, and so it was during the war. There was always a Swiss competition. You cannot compete because they were not involved in the war also, yeah. So this is a very special situation that the Swiss have there. Because it's a small country, it's not far to travel to see the others. Also, that's a big advantage. And yeah, and that was the time that when I started collecting. Also, because I had the feeling that all this stuff is just in America and should be in Europe. So I started buying as soon as eBay was open in 1999 or so. I joined eBay, and then it was just crazy, you know, because everything you've just found in the back of the books as sources or so, you could buy this stuff suddenly, you know, and it got more and more, and so it developed like this, yeah. Now I have the problem that I got old and I have to look where to get all this stuff that it will be, you know, used, that it's usable. but I'll see. That will be another challenge, where to put this. I have talked to different archives and dance archives, but they all have problems financially because there is not much support for these things if they don't create money themselves. So that's the problem there. Yeah. But it's nice to be surrounded by all this history. I liked history. That's why I started this project then in the end, because it gave the chance to bring as many lives of tap dancers who have tried to record and try to together, and it was, now we are at 85 biographies or so of tap dancers worldwide, and Japanese tap dancers and all those who actually worked on records. But that's another topic. I think we should stay with the competitions first. Yeah.
And there we go. Okay.
Do you have any information about, for example, so those championships in 42 in Switzerland, have you found anything like, were there duos? So was it only solo? Was it in groups? Was it one by one?
No, it was just male solos, female solos, and duos.
Okay.
At this time, they didn't list anything else.
And do you know anything about the judging system back then? Like, what was there?
No, because it's just from newspapers. But I think, with that, now we have documents about this, it should be researchable, because if you go through all newspapers, you will have things published. And I think you should reconstruct this history. I mean, as you also now collect all the videos from 1990 on for the last 30 years, and that's great. You have the chance in Switzerland, like no other country, to really reconstruct all this long history, because there is a history before that, and it should be researchable. The bad thing is it's much more easy to find out things about America, even, if something happens in Fredericksburg, Texas or something, you find it in the newspapers because they are digitized. In Europe, you don't find anything because we are so slow with digitizing things. And that's why research is really hard. I mean, now working for my book, I really found it was really hard. And we have a long way to go in Europe to actually make research possible.
Wow.
So how far back have you found anything about championships in Europe in general? Is the 42 the oldest you found?
There have been, before the war, there have been competitions like in France but it was more like amateur competitions. And I think they were put up regionally often. And so it was not that connected, but I found newspapers where they said also in Austria we'll have a Fred Astaire competition, and so the 30s they had competitions, yes, in different countries. I guess also in Germany, in Austria, and the earliest I found in Switzerland was 40. Well, they said like during the 40s, in the beginning of the 40s, yeah.
Wow.
And then it was Bern and Zurich mainly, at this time. Yeah.
I should start some digging. I should, go somewhere and ask if it's possible, because
no, I mean,
who was the person that had the idea to organize it? Like what was the just that would be so interesting. I mean, of course, unfortunately, most of those people are not alive anymore, I guess. But still, it would be very interesting to find if there are somehow articles. Yeah,
I think it's Jos Schürch in Bern who was really the the father of the Swiss tap in some way, organizing things. He had a big dance school there, and I think he was a big motor in the beginning. He is one of the oldest, and that's why I put a picture of him with Roger Louis in the last article that I wrote. Yeah.
I think it's very interesting to hear about these, I will call them cases of early championships, because it shows a more depth in maybe the European tap history than what is talked about in general. Because when you talk about the early tap history, you normally talk about States, you don't talk about Europe. And these championships shows that, you know, it was well established in Europe too at an early age.
Yeah.
Yeah, because dance was just because you had dance competitions in ballroom, in everything. Around the turn of the century, there was nothing more interesting than a good dancer. That was, the people paid incredible amount of money to see good dancers, and the competitions around 1900 in America were taking place in box rings, in stadiums, and there were like 5,000 people watching in big arenas, and they had the box ring, and they had judges under the stage who listened if the tones were clear, and they couldn't see the dancer, and we have these stories about. And they got incredible prize monies if they won, you know. So it was really in this way. There was not much entertainment. So you could hear music, or you could see people dance, or you could see people fight or challenge themselves in sport things. That was all the entertainment you had without any technical help. And so that's why they paid. I mean, if you were a dancer, you were a star. And but this interest, of course, faded by the time as more and more other things come up. But in the beginning, this was the greatest thing to see someone dance well, because everyone could relate and could think, excuse me, how he could move, you know, and this was the most attractive thing, not only in ballroom, but also in all the solo dances. And there was challenges between white and black dancers. And of course, this then had a special, like in boxing, had a special attraction. And they filled big stages, big arenas. Yeah. So there is always this competitive side. Which is okay, which is great, which I also love, but the conditions should be there. And this is I just told Daniel, when we started the first competitions in 91, 92, actually, then they started to do them. Really Germany-wide and organized, and so all the good dancers really could come. But we started in theaters. It was agreed also in Switzerland that the championship is in a legit theater, not too big, with a stage that sounds, and then it was just great. You couldn't have anything more nice than a competition like this. As soon as they went into the big halls, and then the sound wasn't there anymore. It was not, you couldn't cope the sound, and it didn't also come over. It was somewhere in the space, you know, the sound, and it didn't reach the audience, and you didn't have a audience communication. And in the halls, they wanted then fans who scream, you know, and so it was not, suddenly it just by moving it from a theater to a event hall, the whole thing changed. And that was when I went out. I said, no, if you don't hear what the people dance, then you can't judge it. And then you just judge what you see. And that's not what it's about. What tap for me is about, you know, it's not an image. It's a whole package. and so I always fought for the sound, but it didn't work anymore. Also in Riesa, it doesn't really work. They put a lot of microphones all the time, but it doesn't work. The sound, they put curtains around the stage. That's also all nice, but it's not enough. That's the problem. And without the information of the sound, I cannot judge, because this is, for me, it's more than half. But in the 3D system, like you said last time, it's then the technical aspect is one, and there is no point for musicality or for quality of sound or for anything. All this. When we started in Germany with the competitions, I was involved then also with a what do you call it? Well, with all the points that you give, and we had 5 categories then, and that worked quite well, because sort of 2 to 3 were musically and composography wise organized, and then you had also choreography and image and so the personal thing. But usually the 3D system supports more dancers who move their arms than who produce certain sounds. Yeah, and that's the problem. So the space where the things take place is vital.
Yep. Yeah, in Riesa, it got better. It got better, but this is still, as you say, the acoustic situation there is very. I mean, when you sit as a judge right in front of the stage, it's good, yeah. But when you start to move further back, it can be very hard, depending also on the just on the way the dancer executes the taps. It's tricky. And in a theater, there is also automatically at a theater, the dancer has more of a performance. I mean, you're at the theater, you're on a real stage. It feels like a performance more. Yeah, yes, it is a competition, it's a championship, but you are in a real theater. There is an audience, and the acoustic is good. I mean, at least, I mean, I can only speak for the Swiss championships, because we're trying to take a lot of care of this, of course. And at the theaters, it's easier acoustically. So yeah, it's just interesting to hear that. Yeah, in the old days when they're filled up, I don't know, a whole hall with 5,000 people. It's amazing to imagine what sort of attraction, or how can I say, what spectacle it was. Yeah, today the audience sometimes, I mean, the last few Swiss championships we had, they were great, but the audience was missing out. Unfortunately, there was not a lot of audience. Just regular people that think, oh, a Swiss championship in tap dance, I want to go and see that. It's you have to be in a city where there is a tap school, and then there is an audience because of that. The school brings the audience. Then yes, you can have a lot of people. But just generally, just if you say there's a Swiss championship in tap dance, just regular people, it's hard to get them in the theater, but we work on it. We will keep working on it.
Well, the problem is more that we had much less categories, in the beginning. It was just solos, duos, and then groups, and the solos were not even male or female, and we didn't have all the young kids and all that. So you could really have an evening where you had something to present to an audience that is maybe not used to tap dance, maybe even agents, because it had this concentrated feeling of professional people who present them. And that was much more easy to do as an evening show, like a theater show. Because now when you have all these categories, of course, it starts in the morning at 9 and it ends somewhere and then it's not attractive anymore. Yeah. But that's always the problem. It's the problem of our art, that we perform always for people who do the same as us. You know, we have the problem that we don't get in jazz festivals often enough, you know, where, you know, at places where there are not tap dancers. When we have festivals, there's just tap dancers in the audience. You know, we are always, you know, within our little cosmos and our world of tap dancers that understand, of course, then we feel understood. But the challenge is, of course, to reach people who just don't know anything about it and see it and think, wow, you know. And because they live that, and that's always a danger, that we are too much in our circles, and it should take an united effort, you know, always of tap dancers to bring it somewhere else. Also, that we organize competitions that some part is good for an audience who is not that much into tap, you know. That we have a certain time when you say, then you can come, and the final will be just, you know, yeah. But I think also what it changed, we didn't have formations in this time, and the focus was always the soloist. In the end, the solo round was the crown, was the biggest thing, you know. But then, of course, they had interest that, you know, in formations you can have 24 people dance, and they all pay their fee, and they dance 4 minutes. So it's just a calculation, you know. If you have you have to, if you want to make money with competitions, you need the formations. And when they said the formations are now the top, we do the solos, we do the duos, and at the end there are the formations. That was a totally different focus then, because that influenced everything else. Suddenly the great soloists, they didn't have a space anymore, because then were these crowds of people in costumes entering the stage, and they were just nothing anymore. If it was not promoted as what ideals you create, you know. And if you don't have a certain concept of what you want to reach, like you can have in Switzerland, you know, because you can talk, but if you have organizers who come out of the competition organizing scene, they have different goals. For them, it's important that everything is running well, and that it counts, and that the people from America come again. So when we started doing World Championship in 1992, I was there. The first one was 1991. Michael is just doing everything together now from his history, and then we had to experience, you know, that intermediate American tap dancers did the final just because they had to. They should come again, you know. If they didn't get into the final, they wouldn't come again. But you needed Americans. It would not be a champion and a real world championship without them. And so all this was really thought. And we had much better dancers in this time. But we never got into the final. You know, it's all politics then in some way, because it had to build up. I understood that, but we had too much of this, and then after some time, I just had to say no. No.
Wow. Wow, interesting.
Do you think Daniel is something like this right now in politics, in the championships lately? Just asking.
Say it again. Say it again.
If there's some politics like this kind of movement inside of the now in the championships.
To be very honest, I don't know, because for me the World Championship, it was because I entered much later, you know. Uwe is talking. When was the first? When was you? 92? You just said.
Yeah, 92. Yeah.
92. So my first one was 2000. And in the year 2000, I really remember I remember seeing big formations, yes, from the US, from Canada, but also from Germany. I think Slovenia had an amazing formations also. I saw already, I think the way the World Championship changed, I just saw, it was a later point when I entered the whole thing, and there were already so many big formations and big groups, as I mentioned the last time, with the same trainers, with the same, from all around the world, South Africa also, so to me it was always just a huge event. It's a big event where a lot of people from many countries come. And now, again, 20 years later, it's again even bigger. Now there are amazing tap dancers, and many tap dancers from Czech Republic, for example, from Croatia, and so. And I don't see I don't know what's going on behind. I don't know. I would lie or speculate. I don't know. I don't know anything for sure. All I know is that it's. I mean, of course, it is a very big event, and of course, it's always the goal to have a lot of people, of course, and there are finances and but I don't know. The main thing that I see in Riesa, or that amazed me from the very first day I was there in the year 2000, was just the whole the inspiration aspect, to just see so many different kinds of styles of choreographies. And this is, until today, this is so interesting to just sit in the audience there and just watch, and just to see so many different approaches in all of those categories. But yeah, it's true that the formations, they are being, people look at this is like the it's always also at the end. If you have the finales, the last category is the formations. Yeah, it's the and mostly the finales are full of formation numbers that are like with 24 people. 24 people is maximum. You can't have more. Yeah, so all of those numbers, they have 24, and it's, so this is the big finale of the whole thing. And so in those early days, it was you said solos and duos, and
yeah. The solos were the highest.
The solo, that was the, okay.
That was
that changed definitely.
The focus, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Uwe, do you think that all in all, I mean, what importance do you give to the competing side of this art form? Like, I think the fact that you can compete in a way was extremely important for the development. Or what are your thoughts on this? I mean, how would tap dance look like if there were no competitions? Like, is that even, I mean, in your eyes and with all of your research knowledge?
Well, I think competitions are a great way, like you said in the last two sessions here. It opens your mind, and you see other things, and also you grow up together. You described all this process really well. What is all great about competitions. The danger is just that you start to to think in a certain way. As a choreographer, of course, you think in a certain way, and it's always a sort of spectacular and this way. And of course, when you think in theatrical terms, there are so much more possibilities what you can do, and you have described this also. When you work with musicians and everything like that. And but I think competitions are important. because they are always, they give the chance to especially for the young, you know. They still have the danger that people are not always nice when they compete. Yeah, like you said, with a glass splinters in the shoe or something like that. We had this feeling. That's why it's important that the tap community does the competition with them. In Germany, I met a lot of people who were not really interested in tap dancing, but they were interested in winning. And they didn't care really about the tap, but they wanted to win, you know, and they used everything what they could do, and they were really competition groups, and you couldn't talk really with them about tap or about the culture or about anything else. So this is, in a certain field, you meet also people who just have a different mindset, and that was not so pleasant. Because I mean, as tap dancers, we should be all connected in some way. And in the beginning, our competitions, we too, the dancers never cared who won. It was just great to do a show together on this level, you know, and meet and challenge each other. And we didn't care too. But this changed, you know, with as bigger as it was much about winning and qualifying then. And I didn't like the German way. Because we didn't get this family, you know, we lost this family feeling that you have in Switzerland, but you also had to work for this. You also had bad times. So when you have a family feeling, a family is not always pleasant. You have to fight for certain things, but you find a solution, and everyone is living with this. And this is why the process is so great. If you just have an organizer, then you just have to take, you know, whatever they do, if it makes sense or not, you know. They wanted to be, even there was a development when they had just 4 people, they had to do a preview round, and in Germany they started to educate judges, so they could select the judges they had educated because they knew they were going in a certain direction. And when these things start to influence, then you just lose your fun, you know. It's not fun anymore, because you see people pushing their interests through, and you just can't do anything about it. You know, and then it's I also had a problem with my students, because they all have a feeling of justice. And it's very hard to live with a feeling of justice and go to a competition in dance, you know, because there is no justice. There can't be, you know, and because you talked the last time about the difficulties to judge. This is all. I have been a judge a lot in my life, and I know it's difficult. It's really difficult. But sometimes it's not so difficult. It depends also the judges you are with, you know, if you have a certain common understanding of the things, and if the judges sort of come from one background, then they actually, the things are not so far apart. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there, or if you know about any instances or traditions about the competitions having maybe live music, or is that completely excluded from the history here?
Oh, they tried things. I think with live music, I cannot remember now.
There was in Riza, there was a category. I don't remember how the name was exactly, but there was a tryout where you were allowed to bring musicians on stage that play for you, and you perform at the same time. You create the music. It was like, I think it existed for 2 years or maybe 3, and then somehow it disappeared again. That's I don't remember what the name was, and I think for 2 or 3 years maybe. they tried something, but then. But I remember I saw some cool things. There were just not enough. I don't know. There were not a lot of numbers but I remember there was once someone brought a saxophone player and then they did something together that was very nice. Yeah, but I don't
Because you
remember.
would think like maybe in the beginning of the competition that was, the standard.
Maybe they had a piano player. Maybe. Because they would have to bring records, old 78 RPM records, and dance to it. So I don't know how they did it. Of course, during the 30s, 40s, maybe they had a piano player. Yeah, I know of one competition they did with improvisation. They wanted to, but then to be fair, everyone had to dance on the same piece. That wasn't a lot of fun. You had to hear the piece like 30 times, the same piece, and then every time someone else dancing, you got so fed up of this music. Even they chose a nice music, but after the 20th time, you just don't want to listen to this anymore. Yeah. So there have been many things trying, and I think it's cool. It's cool when you do in Switzerland, like you said, you try different things. You try what could be worth, because it's different now. I look at it different now, and in a world that has where so many things are accessible, this is just one of many possibilities that you can use. And if you like the spirit, the vibe there, then you feel fine. If you like meeting people, that's great. You really meet people, and you can get in contact so easily by just going there. And as such, it's just a great thing. And would be worse if Riesa wasn't. It would have been nothing. Many things wouldn't have developed here in Europe so much if there wasn't this World Championship. If this World Championship was in Australia or in the US, no one would go there because no one can afford it. It's crazy what Americans pay to come to Riesa. Yeah. Just for this title. And of course, most of the time they have to be rewarded.
I just had another memory. I don't know it super well, but I just remember reading about Eddie Brown when he was young. There was also, because Bill Bojangles Robinson was close to his hometown, or in his hometown, and there was a contest that he organized, like a little dancing contest. And I think this way, because of this contest, Eddie Brown was discovered by Bill Bojangles Robinson, because he went there, and I think he performed the new lowdown, doing the new lowdown, and he exactly copied Bill Bojangles Robinson's tap break that is in that original song. And Eddie Brown listened and he just remembered the rhythms, and he just copied the rhythms. And I think I read that Bill Robinson said something, "How do you know my steps to this?" And then he said, "Well, I just listened and I transferred them." So that's another I think that's another important example of how, as you just said, people meet, but also people get discovered, and people had the chance to start a completely new life because they met, or they danced a certain way, or they were successful at a contest or something. So, and I think there are many more of stories like that. That's another. It's an event. At those events, if there's, and I mentioned that hundreds of times last time and the time before, but again, it gives you a goal. It's just an amazing. It gives you a goal. Hey, let me go there and present this. I have this. This is what I can show. This is what I like to do. And that's an amazing opportunity, and a lot of careers started this way.
Yeah, if not most of the careers, because when I researched now and we wrote all these biographies of the American dancers, especially the black dancers, they all had done some Charleston contest or some where they had their first success, but also the teachers. I mean, almost everybody when you read what they did, somewhere they did a Charleston contest, Tap Charleston or so, because that was in the 20s just the thing, you know. There were Charleston contests everywhere. And of course, because dancing was so popular, it was just a normal thing to do competitions. Yeah, it's a contest. Yeah, they said things that were organized, and you got a prize, and because of this, you gained confidence, and you started to pursue a professional career in some way. Then you went to auditions, and you got into shows, and that's how it went always. You know, it's. But they were not that important because, of course, they were not world championships. I think when this came up first, the world championship, and now he is a world champion, then things were confused in a way, you know. So because people then thought, yeah. But as you said last time, if you just think of it as an event like any festival event, then it's just a great chance to meet a lot of people. Yeah. And people probably you wouldn't meet at a festival, and because from so many nations, and this is a great thing. This is, I would say it's 50-50, and it's for use normally for many careers. Also, a student of mine. After being in Riza and getting into the final round, he wanted to become a dancer. And I said, okay, if you want to become a dancer, then don't go again on this competition, but go take this money and invest it in ballet lessons. Because without ballet, you won't be a dancer with just tap. And now he is a contemporary dancer, a great contemporary dancer, and is, freelancing. And that's great. That's great. So it's always this first moment where you see that you can do something, and you survive on the stage and people applaud to you. But you can have this also in a school show if it works well. I mean, it's just one possibility.
Yeah. You can have it at a jam or just or any kind of event. That's very true.
And especially if you start young. I mean, if you start young and you start in the children's category and you have all these others before you, you have idols there that you want, that are, you know, not you haven't seen on television, but you see them there and you see them next year again. And that's a process, of course, that raises the level, the technical level. If a whole country takes this serious, then it surely does a lot to the level of the art in this country. I think without competition, it would not be like that. That's what I have experienced. Yeah, but there is a certain time where it's good, and then there are other things to do.
I have a question about chronology because I'm a little bit lost. Like, you mentioned the first in Switzerland was like 42. Yes.
This is the first that I heard.
That you know,
I have data. It probably was earlier.
But I want to make like a link or something like this between like associations, or it was like a private like organization, like somebody said like, I just want to do a contest, or it was connect with a Swiss tap or German tap, because I think it's something chronology that I'm
organizations didn't exist then.
Okay, it was later.
In this way. Maybe it was through a ballroom, probably through some ballroom schools, and they were used to do competitions in ballroom, and so they said, okay, we have tap dancers here. We ask, we write out to the schools if they have tap dancers, and they some knew each other, and so they have a basis, and they start something, and if it got bigger, if more people were there, then you have it. But it can also go, because it's always the engagement of certain people who are behind this, who organize all this, who love the idea. And it's incredible what Mr. Wendt has done, Michael Wendt has done. It's really incredible how he has built this up over years to what it is now. And he had a clear concept for this, but without him, this would not have happened. And yeah.
So, but for example, the championship right now are organized in Switzerland by the Swiss TAP, like you're.
In
Yes,
Germany, in Germany by the ADTV, or the TAF now. The TAF does all dance competitions, and so it does the German one too, and then the IDO does the World Championship. And not every country is organized in this way, you know. So there are parts of dancers in Italy who can do it. Sometimes they did a competition as a qualification. Many countries actually just organized because there was Risa. Because then there was the possibility to send people, and they said, okay, now we have to organize something in our country, that we do a qualification for that, and we do a national championship that might not have been existed before. I don't know about Czechoslovakia. They probably had some tap competition, because I knew people from there. And but other countries, I think Italy was not organized for that. Yeah, they just built this because there was Risa, and so that helped for some. But it depends, you know. This case that the tap scene does their own community in competition wise, in their own organization. This is so special. Usually it's a ballroom organization, and then things are different, you know. Because in Switzerland, for instance, they could say, okay, we take the three-dimensional, but we take the technical aspect, we count that double. We do this here in Switzerland. And immediately they got much more just results, because this was a weak point. You know, there is not enough points for what they actually do with their feet. You know, there's a lot of points for the images and choreography, and everything is the space and that you can see. But there is no. This is missing, and you can correct this, but we cannot. You know, then they abolished our system and said, no, we go, because they do it in Risa, we do the same in Germany. But then the German qualifications were just horrible sometimes, yeah, from what they judged, you know. Also, I never thought it was good to educate judges, because then you get them all in one direction, and the best thing is to have as many judges as possible. 5 is not enough. You need 7, and then it evens out, you know, because, but if you have 7 professionals, there might be some 2 or 3 who have really a different view or a different taste than maybe the others, but it evens out in a way. Yeah. And that is probably the best thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because the more and more I'm also thinking, last time we talked about the judging systems and what system you can come up with, and what would be the greatest way to judge. But what Uwe is saying, just having 7 professionals. And again, as you said, it always depends. It always depends on the background of those judges. It depends, and there is they of course you get influenced by your history, what you know, what you like, what you don't like, because it's just an art form. It's really, there is nothing to count. There are maybe bars to count, or or beats or whatever, but it's so yeah, it's very interesting how this whole, just the thinking about judging tap dance is also for me more and more. Of course, we will still have the Swiss championships, and we always will have the championships, but depending on the amount of judges and of their knowledge, that's the bottom line always, I think. Doesn't matter what kind of judging system you give them. Yeah. But I'm curious to know, for back in the days when there were dancers on stage and you had people under the stage just listening, the people that were listening, were those dancers also, or were those musicians, or who was listening? For example, in that case, back in those days, do you have any? Do you have any information on that?
Must have been tap dancers.
I think so too.
you have to understand what is happening. Yeah.
That's right.
And like you said, a ballet dancer or a musician has a different. He doesn't know enough about our challenges and about our way to express also, and the possibilities we have actually to express. Yeah. But in the beginning, like you said, when you have 35 solos in one category, in the beginning they didn't even do 3-dimensional. They did crosses and half crosses. So everyone, you thought, okay, he should advance. I do a whole cross. If I'm not sure, I do a half cross, and then in the end I see which ones, make it then into the next round. And so it was really just, there was no, and this was all the beginning of the World Championships through. I don't know if they really write out points now, and if they do this already in the first round, or if they do just in the intermediate rounds, because in the end, they don't do a judgment with points anymore. They just show their signs. They just show the 1 or the 2 or the 3. And then they don't have to write anything down anyway. On the World Championship in Switzerland, we had to fill out everything, of course, and they were published in the end. So all the marks we had given were then published, and every judge had to actually be open and say, and could be asked why he gave such a bad mark to this or that dancer. That was also that. When it was open, it was good, but it was also bad, because then you already knew after before the final who actually was in favor. And it was not surprising anymore. The great thing about a competition as an event is that what happens in the end when the judgment comes is absolutely surprising. So that's why they kept, putting up those marks.
That changed. In Riesa, that's not the case anymore.
It's not the case anymore.
It's just the finale is over, and then all the dancers take a bow, and then when there is the presentation of who's first, then they go directly to, okay, and the 5th place is, because they calculate, but you don't see who gave they changed that. But I think if you want, you can go and look who gave what kinds of points. But at the event, the giving the marks thing, that doesn't exist anymore.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting, because it was always a bad impression. If you had, for one dancer, you had 1, 2, 6, 5, 5, 3. And then you didn't understand anything anymore, how because then all the judges actually showed how different every time it was how different, and you thought, well, this is just random. This is just a random judgment, you know. You just pick any of those 6 numbers and then you put them up, because it never. Yeah, then it showed how different they saw it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they leave this away. Okay. Yeah.
There have been, I mean, throughout all of those years, there have been all kinds of cases. There have been people that were, everybody had the same opinion and said, okay, this is first place for all the judges. But then there were many times also, yeah, for this judge, this is the winner. For the next judge, this is 6th place. It was a salad. That's crazy. And then, yeah, there have been many interesting moments during those after finale scorings. So yeah, interesting. Craziness. Are there any other questions, maybe from anybody who?
Yeah, there's a question. We have one.
Yeah, Kate, she is wondering about if you know anything about the beginnings or late beginnings of tap in Poland, and if you know any German dancers traveled there.
I don't right now.
I was only once in my life in Poland. Was it 19? Oh my God, was it 2019? Yes, it was 2019 in Wrocław. There was a festival, so there I met a little bit. I met some of the tap dancers in Poland, but unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to have some historical backgrounds. Unfortunately. It's on the bucket list.
To do.
Yes, to-do list.
Yeah, Kate is from Poland, and yeah, she said also here in the talk that they danced on ballet floor without microphones in the last national competition. That's not good.
On the ballet floor
Yeah.
without microphones. Yeah. I mean, then that's just a problem. Then so many steps, you can't execute them well. If you want to use slides, special kinds of, I don't know if it will be sticky. Depending on the shoes, the heel drops, they just get lost in the marley floor. You just don't hear anything. So yeah, this is. Yeah.
This reminds me of a world championship. It was in Dresden, but not in Dresden, and they had built up a whole new stage, and they had painted the stage, but it was of course December, and it was like 6 grades or something, and so the paint didn't dry, and that was a world championship on wet paint. After every round, we came down from the stage. We had to use a nitro to take the paint from our shoes. You know, and it was really like on the shoes, but we did it. We had to do it. There was no other way. We danced on gray paint, on wet paint.
Amazing.
A whole championship. That was incredible. Yeah.
We have another question from Yoshi. She is asking, thanks for the wonderful talk. In old days, how was the audience attracted and dragged into the performance with steps, choreographies, costumes, music, singing together, dancing together, any sense of unity? Was it like a football stadium or like a city festival?
I don't understand this quite. How was the audience attracted and dragged into the performance? Well, they came because they were interested.
They wanted to be entertained, of course. I mean, they wanted to be surprised. I
mean, there's something like we mentioned, and we were like not so deep in this. It's like we're dancing most of the time for our own audiences, for tap dancers. So how we move this out, and I think can be like some details or some stories on the old days, how they get like how they feel this 5,000 people.
Yeah, exactly. Why did 5,000
let's-
people come
And
to see this
suddenly we have
contest?
like
Well,
there's a competition in Switzerland and there's no regular audience in this. Like
That-
there's a big gap.
Mm.
But for example, I would say something. Right now with my company, for example, I'm trying to put the tap dancing inside of the contemporary circuits. Like not trying to build something for a tap audience and put this thing out of this. But that's my choice, like to do that. So I think there's like more stories or something to tell around these things. And pointing people to, yeah, like if we want this art form to survive better, like it is surviving, but better, we need to put it out more. So,
because I also done that a couple of times with the company and kind of angle the choreographies and stuff to a more common audience, presuming that they haven't seen tap before or they've seen very minimal. And those choreographies often get a lot of good feedback compared to maybe what I love to do as a tap dancer or these kind of things. Like if I'm not choreographing for myself, but choreographing for that audience.
Yeah. Well, I have a school, so we do school performance every year, and we have a game, to present a new show with a different aspect every year, and maybe even with a topic, so that we say everything happens in a bar, and then we try to make pieces that can be played in a bar and can be, because then we don't have talks. People come, they start to tap, maybe they have a music machine or things like that. I like to develop stories, so dancers are just on stage and then they start to dance, or on the street. We put up a street with houses in the background and stuff, and so we used things that happened on the street, and so through these shows, when you have a school, then you can build up an audience that is not connected really to tap. A lot of people just come there because they know it's some kind of musical entertainment, and they love it with tap because they don't see it so often. And this is the great thing when you have a school and you like to work in a theatrical way. And we all have a beautiful small theater with 300 people. That's about the perfect size. Maybe you can go to 400, but then the coziness goes away, and if you have a real nice theater, then with the seats ascending, and so everyone can really see the feet, and that is the magic that is happening in spaces like this. Then everyone goes out and just thinks, wow, I've seen. And always we have dancers from the children to the old people, so everyone is on stage, so that represents the life, and people love this. They love when it's so natural, and this you can do by just being regularly out, and people come. I always trust that the theater will be full, even if our students and the people cannot fill it, but we have through performing every year, we got an audience that comes all the time, and they wait for it, for the next show to come, and that's good. But what Brenda said, if you have a company, that is also a different feeling. It's hard as a soloist to go around, but then you can just go to tap festivals or to jazz festivals, but if you have a company, then like what Sebastian Weber does now, from Germany, he always does company work, and that's great. And that's then tap has a stage also in the theater. It has a place in the theater because companies go there. You are a dance company. You can go to different festivals and perform your piece, or maybe even your whole evening. and or split performances with another company and things. So company work, this is always what Brenda said, is Brenda Buffalino. It's so important to do this artistic work in terms of company work. Which is difficult because, I mean, you need a lot of events to pay your dancers. So that many companies were there in the time that I was. Many schools did companies, but then they stopped it after some time again because they couldn't hold the dancers, you know, for maybe 1 gig a month or 2 gigs a month. That's not enough, you know. And that was always the really hard stuff. There's not enough possibilities. And then you work on and off and you go back to teaching. And then, so we always have to find some combination. If you have a school, it's good. You are quite free, but you're bound to the school. You cannot just go anywhere in the world and go there and teach. And so there is different careers really that have different possibilities. And I was never so much a soloist, so I enjoyed being in an ensemble and creating a show of which I'm a part of, and just fill my part with the others. And I like this feeling of being together with other people. And it's another thing if you are free and if you don't teach regularly, then you can go and perform, and then you can go and jam, then you can go. But then you have really, you must have the focus of you as an artist and nothing else. And the brain of an artist and the brain of a teacher is different. It's a different. In the end, it's hard to do both, unless you are brilliant as Daniel, of course. And started that young, because that makes it a big difference too.
Yeah. I see we're closing in on 1.5 hours. I would like to ask you if,
Fast.
I know.
That's
like,
fast.
It's fast.
What?
Would you like to tell a bit more about your project and how people can get involved?
Yeah, this came about after an overdose of competition in 2007, 2008. I had, with my small school, I had 14 numbers at Riza, and 7 got into the final round. And then I had proved myself that with a small school I can do that. And but we had, it was too much. And then I got into this project by talking to a publisher. I was actually researching German history, and I found old German performers from pre-war time who were still living and who had records, like Carmen Lahmann. She, as a child, she had recorded her tap dance on records, on old 78 records. And I got one of the biggest collectors living of Europe and sellers of 78 RPM records, and I visited him. He lives close to Freiburg, and I asked him about tap dancing on records, and we didn't find a lot in the beginning, but he was inspired and he started searching, and he was traveling a lot seeing all other collectors, and he started all asking them about tap, and suddenly he came with Danish teaching records from 1934, where in Denmark people had published that on records, and so we got to see more. And I thought, well, whatever tap dancer has the chance to dive into this world, and I liked it. You know, I liked the old music. I got to really appreciate the recording, the specialty of the recordings of those, because you couldn't cut, you couldn't do anything. You had to one take, and it had to be in there. Everyone had to be concentrated, and you hear this concentration of the musicians to be on the spot now. You can hear this in the recording. They are so present with the music. It's so different from what you then heard on CDs. And I thought, well, I got to do this. I have the access, and it interests me. And there was a publisher who said, you can publish this. You know, these are free, copyright free. They can be re-edited. And so I went to search. I had already searched before but more by chance, because but then I started really systematically, and I found, especially in Europe, so many documents in the UK, in England, before the war. There has been so many recordings, much more than in America. Because America had already sound film, they didn't think that records was a good medium, like the radio. It was maybe just for some stars who went on the radio, or Bill Robinson had to make his discs, and then Astaire, of course, because it was connected to the movies. And but they didn't really trust in this. In Europe, they did a lot of recordings, and everywhere, in France, in Denmark, in Sweden, and people from Norway recorded in Germany, in Berlin, and you had the Rocky Twins and Paul Rosberg from Oslo, and he was much in German films, and so I got really a lot into the European tap history, and that was an incredible thing. And then I looked in Japan, and I tried to find old records from 35 in Japan, and was communicating with Japanese people, and some recordings I got sent from Australia. And suddenly this became a history, and it's because it was more, and it came together. And I could sort of make a chronology, and I thought, well, half of this was never really published on CDs or anything, and it would be lost. It would have been lost because no one is interested anymore. And I thought, what a pity, because it's different than films. When you listen, you connect more. I read a book about music philosophy where they say, where they had showed some scientific researches that people who are blind but who can hear, who can only hear, they have a much more trust in the world and are much less afraid than people who cannot hear and just see. Because seeing confronts and hearing connects.
Wow, that's a shirt.
Hearing connects because you get, and if you see things, there's always things you don't see behind you, so you actually have to always turn, but you would hear them, and there is a totally different psychology going on if you look or if you hear. And I started to love listening more and more. And because it's like when you read a book or you see a film, when you listen to the sounds, you imagine the movements yourself. You imagine what sounds could that be, and it's highly creative process. And I tested this. I saw Bill Robinson's Stair Number with Shirley Temple, where he goes alone first, And when you watch it, you see different things, and you see how he jumps the stairs. But when you just listen to it, you hear him breathe. You hear him put his energy. You really go with him. You don't just look at him, And this is something actually you always want to achieve when you are on the stage. That you transfer your imagination so much to the audience that they can be a part of this, And I think. And then it got so much, and I must say, so many beautiful songs that are dealing with tap, and how they included the tap into the songs, and by mentioning things, and it was a totally different world. And I had so much respect for all these dancers who have tried to leave something behind, because in this time probably. It was not the majority of people. You can read it in reviews from then that really liked that they did that, So it was also something against, I'm putting my tap now on this record, and hope people will buy it, and not just some freaks, And so it was much about this, and suddenly it's a really big history through all the biographies, because then I thought, well, if I want to tell this story, it's good you can hear it, but then you want to know about the people who did it, and in their biographies, of course, there's so much tap history involved, and we all researched these new. I found a great man in England, Terry Brown, he is a captain of the army, and he's now retired, and he always liked to write about starlets and their stories of films, and he was always into that, and he just brought this to another level. Yeah, and I learned so much from him, from his possibilities to research everything. So everything is newly done, like 21st century, through newspapers, and you actually have all the dates when they performed when, and so their lives really because we lived much in the myths in the last century, like before 2000, tap dancing was all big myths and all were the greatest, but you never knew really the dates and where they were and what they did, and so we tried to find that, and so it got really a whole art project, because it has these pre-war recordings starting from 1926. I even put some examples of 1900 cylinder recordings where they imitated the tap, so that we get an impression of how this sounded around the turn of the century, how the music was there. And then you see what a long way the music went until 26, until you were really in the golden 20s. And suddenly it took off, because recording techniques, where you had an electrical recording possibility, so the microphone was sensitive enough to actually capture the sounds of tap. That wasn't possible before. That's why you had maybe some clock dancers, but most of the time it was drummers imitating tap. And that was also something, a lot of the records I bought, it had tap dancing written on it, especially in Germany or in Europe. And in the end, it was a drummer faking it, but they sold it because tap was in, and you had the feeling of tap. But in the end, it was some drummer playing on a rim. So we had to take all these out just by listening. I mean, the collector couldn't do that. Just I could do that because I knew that couldn't be tap, because it didn't make sense in any way to be a step or something. Some drummers really imitated that very good. And I also put Joe Jones. He did impersonations of tap dancers on the drums, if you know that. He recorded in the 70s, just by memory. He did impersonation of Pete Nugent, of Bill Robinson, of Baby Lawrence, and of Pete Nugent, Baby Lawrence, and another one, Eddie Rector. And all the information about some of the dancers, like Pete Nugent or Eddie Rector, we just had his drum imitation, that we had a sort of impression how they danced. But we found the recordings. Bear Family published a recording of Eddie Rector from the Cotton Club in 1931 with Duke Ellington at the piano, and I have to drink.
One.
And we found actually a recording of Pete Nugent, the first one, from an audio track from a television screening where the video is lost. So now this brought me then, after I had finished collecting all the record stuff, and we went until 65. So it's the first 40 years of tap dancing, recorded tap dance completely. So I don't think I missed anything. Maybe in the 50s there could be another recording on some single, 45 that I missed because they are not already in catalogs or something. But I think I got quite the complete recordings of the first 40 years of tap dancing. And I thought, if we want to develop the audio quality of tap, if we see it as a percussion instrument that is not like any other percussion instrument, then we now have to know the history. You have to know what has been tried, and because people still record Sarah. Ruiz gave out a tap CD, which is great, but I missed the solo aspect of the tap dancing. So her tap is always in the background somewhere on some wood. So the sound, when you record it, the sound is of course very important. What I think in one of the last, when tap is music, I think when you talk with Andrew, and he said some interesting things about that. You have to know what you want to sound like when you go to when you work with sound technicians. You know, you have to know what you want to sound like. If you want to sound dry or open, like in the Gregory Hines Stanley Clarke recording, where everything is really open and with a lot of pickups on the floor. And so the experimenting with the sound is so important, and people have done this, and they've put it on music. And when you listen to music, it's so different because you remember the tune. When you see a video, you forget. You remember some movements, but a tune stands with you. You know, you can sing it, you can whistle it, you can always. And this is why I thought this was important to have for people. Also, it preserves really the music, how it changed from swing to experimental things to big bands to then to stereo, then to you can really follow this history, and it has so many great examples that I thought it would be worth, you know, putting everything together. Like never has been something done in tap before. What concerning the amount of material, the sheer amount. And that's why it took so many years, because just to handle this amount of recordings, we have almost 400 tracks in total. So that's quite a lot, and they come all on single sides, and I have to know about the quality so that we get the best quality. So there is not, because it's very difficult to take when you have cracks in the record. It sounds like the tap sounds. So you cannot go into and just clean it with some automatic cleaning, because then you take away the tap. It will still be there, but it will sound like the tap dance has been moved to another room, and you're just hear him around the corner. So you had to have really good recordings and good quality of the originals. And and so all this is really documented. We show all the labels of all the records, what you usually never see. It's really also a tribute to old recording techniques that we lost. You know, the contact with the music, that we could say the piece is here, from here to here, and it's not just an MP3. Where you don't know where it comes from, where it has no cover to read, where you get no relation to the things. And so I just did it. And then as we had some space, I wanted to do a Bill Robinson tribute. So I went to radio archives, and there are things to be found that were incredible. And so we have a whole CD now, starting with Bill Robinson with his records that he did, also with a private recording that I was given, and then radio things that most people have never heard. Him singing songs that they never heard from him because they were not on film, you know. And I put in another section of the because radio is the same thing. You try to sell your art without people being able to see it, you know. And Bill Robinson was perfect for this, because he explained exactly what he was doing through all the dance. He said, "No, I'm shuffling on the left. I don't want to cheat you. It's the left." And here now I'm on the right, and now I do this step, and now I do that step, and that's just fantastic. So I really got to love this audio history, because it's a music history, and it shows the development. I mean, you end up with with Baby Lawrence and then Jimmy Slide, all these French recordings that he did, that they changed, they mixed it when they brought out the CD, and they mixed it, and the sound was not like it was on the LP before. So we went back and got this, and also crazy experiments of what people did with tap, and it's all artistic, purely acoustic statements, and for me this was, well, I started 10 years ago, and the last 4 years I was just working on this and nothing else. And so it's going to be finished now, thanks to COVID. After I tried to advertise it, but because of COVID, there was no chance. Everyone was busy and didn't want to spend money, not knowing when he ever could teach his students again and earn money. So that was a killer. But then I went back now, and I'm just finishing now. In probably next month, everything will be finished, and then I start again to advertise for it. And I hope that tap teachers will have this in their library, because you get everything together, and the price is quite high. It's like 300 euros, but it's actually really cheap for what is in there. And I had to pay like 20,000 euros in advance now just for all this material, and going to England, where someone, a specialist, does these transfers, and so it will be finished as soon as we got 230 people more worldwide that would buy it. The funny thing is, I wrote it in English for the world, but almost all people who ordered it are Germans. So, yeah, no one from England, no one from Spain. Oh yeah, Guillaume, of course. But Guillaume knows me. We know each other for a long time. We have been on one world championship together in '93 in Lucerne. There was a world championship where Guillaume won, because he danced an a cappella number without music. It was possible then, and he was just killing. And from then we know each other well, and he visited me in Freiburg. I performed in Spain, in Reus, with my brother. Yeah, I danced 13 years with my brother. That was the best time you could have, because to dance with a brother, there's nothing like this. There's nothing like this. Because you know that you like what you hear all the time, because he feels the same, that you dance together. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
I
nice.
know. I'm like, you will get an order for Norway, that's for sure.
Yeah. So are you
I will
going
add one to Spain too.
Are you going? So Uwe, you will use Facebook mostly for advertisement, and on your website.
I did,
guess?
yeah, I did.
Those. Okay, so just for the people to follow you, so if they follow your Facebook, they will get
They'll
the
find
update.
it. Yeah, they'll find the sound of tap in. Yeah, they'll find it.
Yes.
I put the link here.
Tap dancing on record. Yeah.
Yes. Is it also maybe possible to contact you and get like flyers for people to put up at their schools?
Yes, sure. Yes, sure.
So
I send you one flyer in the email, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. But this has to be updated again, because to treat everyone right, we had to write even some more biographies now. I think we are now at 85. Yeah. 85.
Wow. Amazing project.
And we spent the last 2 months just cutting all these, because they got too much. We had to cut from every biography. We had to cut half a page. And because I didn't want to risk that I get problems with the publisher in the end. We cannot do more than 500 pages, So.
Wow.
Yeah, and all the pictures. I mean, for all the dancers' pictures and all the labels, and it's like a celebration of tap in a book and in an audio book which has sound. You know, you can hear them all, and yeah, I thought I'm too late. Actually, I should have done that 10 years earlier, because then CDs were still quite common. And now they are not anymore, you see now, but they're just something, you know, a carrier, and you put it in and have it any way you want. But you have a good sound quality on a CD, and you don't have it on an MP3.
Vinyls are coming back.
Vinyls, yeah.
Up there. We're there.
Yeah, me too.
Books, vinyls. Yeah.
So I think it's really a project that is for musical in education, and it has also a big teaching section. And I have developed a writing system that I think, of course, is the best in the world. It makes things so easy. I took the standard notation and I will have all this because it has a lot of teaching material. I think like 3 CDs full, so you can learn from Ned Wayburn again, you know, like Fred Astaire did, like Marie Carrec did, like many Europeans did, where they went to the school of Ned Wayburn. He had the biggest dance school in New York, and you can actually take lessons from him with his written material, with my transcriptions, because he used other terminology, and also the French and the Danish course and the English course and so you have really what was taught in 1926. This is from 1926, you know, and you can see the routines, you can learn the routines, you have music that accompanies it. And so these are great things, and there will be a whole. I developed also how to transcribe rhythms in a different way, because it's you couldn't tell from writings of the American notation if it was an 8th triplet or it was a 16th note that starts, you know, as a grace note. And you didn't have that, so I decided I developed a clear, through letters, through pluses and stuff, and E's and A's and stuff, so you can really decipher from first sight. You see it's binary or it's ternary subdivision of bars, and you can really have this way can go down to 32. I think it's semi-quaver. Yeah, I don't know what is in English. To the notes which have 2 flags. Yeah, 16th notes, and then with 4, and then with 4. That's the 32nd notes. Yeah.
Semi-fusas. I know that in Spanish. Yeah. Sorry.
You can go right down there, and I think this should help. But I think I would have to publish this in another way too, because I think this is the future. Nothing is faster than if you read a choreography. Video is not as good, and I can write a choreography, give it to my assistant teacher, and she has never seen it, but she can teach it from the writing directly, you know. And as we have hard time to memorize things, and when you dance choreography, you have to memorize things. I just print out everything I choreographed for my students. I give them the writing, and so we are able actually to do a performance every year, you know, because they can study at home with a written choreography. Even if it is very complicated, I even could notate this way Andreas Daniel's crazy stuff, you know. It is possible. So I think it's a notation. It is based on standard notation, but it's I did certain vital changes that make it much more easy. You can almost sight read it.
Wow!
And I went away from music. The only other equivalent is by writing music notes, but we don't communicate this. We always count in the lessons, and we always produce sounds to, a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4, and things like that. 1E and and things like this, and so you get. I really worked like this as I wrote a lot. As I said, I took most of my steps first out from videos, and I had a discipline to write every day, like 3 hours. I sat down in the morning when I had opened the school and wrote tap choreography down from films, steps. I just wrote them down, and then they were available. I could then put them in there. If they fit there, I could put them there. And as a teacher, when you produce a lot of choreographies, there's no other way than to write well. And because it's one time for you the work, and then you have it easy because other people can work themselves from this. And no video is exact like this, no, and easy to handle for the lesson. So I think that's something, but as tap is such a free and easy art form, everyone can say everything to everything, They talk about paradiddles, meaning paddle and roll, and I think what paradiddle is something totally different, but it's open to anyone to say what he wants, And this is also a nice thing about tap. But I think for the art it would help if we all spoke the same language worldwide. That we go to Japan and we know what a flap is and what a grab of Maxiford is and how it's done, or if we just use the same words, For a flam or a slurp or a open third, or there are different words used also by all different American teachers. Everyone has a different vocabulary depending how he learned. But if we got to a standard like it was for some time, when we started, actually the standard was quite common. And just through modern videos where they just say all kinds of stuff, then it got.
A very interesting one was for step heel, or let's say ball heel. I once heard dig heel. That was also interesting. There is terminology.
Some say, if you dig into the floor, you can say you have a ball dig or you have a heel dig. I reserve the dig for the heel. And then I changed. I also used the big and small writing. So as it is important how the weight change is done. As CAM notation, for instance, just uses weight changes, and some French notations just had one foot and the other foot, and they write notes on the other line. And so there are different systems. But I use if I write something big, like step is big because it's a weight change. A flap is big because it's a weight change. A shuffle is written small, because then you can write a small dig without a weight change and a big dig with standing on it. You see, you can have the same sound, because what is important, if you communicate tap, you want to have the words. That's why English is so perfect. When they have transferred it into French or Spanish, or it never worked. Because we have too many syllables for the sound, then you say a heel beat or something, but heel is enough, it's a heel and it's one sound. And English is perfect for that. And if you have the sound of the names, then you shouldn't take others, like a shuffle has two sounds, it has two syllables. And this has to be through, so you can actually talk tap. That's what I do in every lesson. I just talk what I do, and everyone knows that. And so it's additional information. You don't have to look and see, and so. But you have always this information, and you say it yourself. Every student is talking in my lessons. I want them to sing what they do, because this is the way you learn by heart.
Mhm.
And this is great that you have names, because then you have the differences. So it's not. I think this was a big improvement to have a common language in this, But it's still difficult. It's still difficult for us to be behind this, because we like the freedom. And we don't like too many regulations. That's why we have problems also with competitions. That's why,
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
We're closing
Wow.
it.
Yeah. Amazing. This is like, all this information. I hope that people grab it and go research your stuff and buy your stuff. And I hope that people follow both of you, because we need this in Europe. We need people like you guys. So
Thank you so much for having us, and Uwe, thank you for being spontaneous and jumping in.
I like the format so much, because where do
Very-
you have time to just follow something and without even a map, you just go into the jungle and see what comes out. And I really enjoyed watching your past tap talks very much, and I think it's a great format. And even if not everyone in the world clicks in, it's a great thing, and it's there for people to watch on YouTube or on Facebook or so. It's fantastic. Yeah.
to revisit.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us. It's been a blast. And thank you, Danielle, for joining 3 times. Thank you, Uwe, for joining today. I mean, we're like, this is what TAP is about. So,
Yes.
and this is why we have the show. So, really,
Yes.
yes.
No words. It's just like, thank you, as everybody's saying. We're like,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Then I will log off.
It was a big pleasure, and I will follow you now.
We'll go back. We'll go back, Iselin and me, soon. But just like, as always, we're doing between seasons, just like some breathing, and we'll come back with something new.
Yes.
Ta-da!
Nice.
Ta-da! Have a
Bye.
lovely
Thank
weekend,
you.
guys. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.